Welcome to Meet the Candidates on Brattleboro Community Television. My name is Chris Lenois, and today we are visiting with Adam Salviani. He is an independent candidate running for state representative in Brattleboro District 2, running against incumbent progressive Democrat Molly Burke. Welcome, Adam. Thanks for coming on.
Chris, thanks for having me.
I guess my first question, did I pronounce your name okay?
You did, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
I forgot to check.
One of those Italian names is a little tough.
I forgot to check with you before we went on. So
you pulled it off like a pro.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Well, a little biography first, because I know you're relatively new to the Brattleboro community. Talk a little bit about when you came here and your choice to do so.
I came here early 2014, and I came because my wife decided to run off and join the circus. I'm from the New York City area originally, and had been working in Manhattan for a long time, and really needed a change, wanted a change. And when my wife decided that the circus life was for her, it brought me here, and I just fell in love with the place. I've been involved with a number of organizations. I'm in the town government now, as some of your viewers might know, and
that's as for those who don't know, tell them your position.
Oh yeah, so I'm the chairman of the Town Arts Committee.
Right.
Currently, I've been serving on that committee for a year and a half, and I'm also one of the directors of WVEW, Brattleboro Community Radio, and I have a show on there, and I'm also making administrative decisions now. So
terrific. So we were just talking a little off air. This is the first time, though, that you're running for an elected office, and you're having fun with it.
I'm really enjoying it. This was always a dream of mine to do this, and for financial reasons, for a lot of reasons, party reasons, probably wouldn't have happened if I had stayed in New York or New Jersey, but. To be up here, to be meeting people, I'm going around meeting tons of great people every day, and just getting to know what they're concerned about, their thoughts and everything. I'm having a great time, and of course I get to do shows like yours too.
Now you said for party reasons was one reason you didn't do something in New York.
I feel like so I'm running independent,
right?
Obviously,
so I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, I've always been a Democrat my whole life, and. I was a big Bernie guy. Mm-hmm. I followed him around, New Hampshire in January and February. But I've always kind of looked at the Democratic Party and the Republican Party with kind of a skeptical eye, frankly. Just like Bernie and his supporters have, I suppose. And especially in New York, you have this big party system where I feel like it's a bit restrictive, and especially for a young guy like me trying to get into it.
So here you could have come in as a Democrat run in the primary versus an independent.
I could have, and I gave a lot of thought to that. But I have a lot of concerns about how the Democrats are running our state, and it would have. And you're right, I could have done what Bernie did and run for the Democrat as an independent, but that would have felt a little disingenuous to me. And I feel like. It's a great way to appeal to people across the spectrum, because I really don't think the party system is a great system.
Yeah. The downside of that, though, would be when you get up to Montpelier, finding support for your ideas.
That's true, but I love working with people, and I think as an independent, you can find common ground with both Democrats and Republicans, and I think that's. A big part of the party problem up in Montpelier is that there's this kind of partisan divide, just like it is in Washington or any other state capital. And I think an independent, especially someone like me who's a little bit outside the system, that has some good ideas, I feel like I could do a lot of good things up there.
Yeah. Now I do have to ask you about an article in the Brattleboro Reformer a little bit earlier this year about your business, Raider Publishing International.
Yeah.
They spoke to a lot of former clients, accusing you of not delivering on services promised, even defrauding them was one accusation that was made.
Right.
Some people have seen that article, other people aren't, but I'm sure you're getting asked about it, so what are you telling voters?
Well, it's a fair question. It's a fair question. I'm a small business owner. Still am. The company is in the process of being sold, but I've been running that publishing company for 12 years now. I started in my dorm room, and it's a wonderful company. And we've worked with 1,300 authors in 117 different countries, and to my knowledge, 4 people contacted the Reformer and saying these things. And I think most people that want to have a grown-up conversation about that, we'll find that if you work with 1,300 people, there's going to be some people that don't like what you did, or their book didn't sell well enough, and they think that that's, that's on you as the publisher. And I've tried to work out these problems with a lot of the people even mentioned in that article. Sometimes that's not possible, but I can't tell you how proud I am of my business. And that article was really disappointing to me because it totally pushed aside the fact that my company, on a shoestring budget, has sold 1.3 million self-published books. In this industry and in this day and age, that's ridiculous. And the vast majority of my authors have been very happy, and it's a great company. As I said, it's there's a couple bids for it to be sold right now too. I have no problem talking. I'm extremely proud of my company, and it was, the tone of that article was very disappointing, and I thought it was very interesting how the week before, when the reformer announced that I was running, it was on the back page of Section 3, and that was first page news as soon as a couple of people came in and complained on the the Labor Day edition. And
right. Well, you're here to talk about your candidacy.
Yeah,
so
but I appreciate the question.
To address
no,
that.
I appreciate that, and I've got nothing. I've never defrauded. I'm an author myself. I would never do anything to harm authors, and I think if you actually look at my record, I've been an advocate for many authors, and I'm really proud of that. Yeah.
Well, and certainly as you go through this campaign, small businesses are something that you're a big advocate for. People can find out about that on voteforadam.org. Went to the Secretary of State's site and was looking at your campaign finance report, and a couple things we're curious about it. Number one, you haven't raised any money. You're not even lending yourself any money for this campaign.
No, it's all out of my own pocket.
Right, but you're not even lending it to your campaign. You're not even taking advantage of that opportunity.
No,
Okay.
This is, I see this as a privilege.
Okay.
I see this as a privilege, and I don't mind putting in my own money for it, and certainly, and the biggest investment for me is my time.
Right.
This is months, and it's going out and reaching out to people, and that's really the biggest investment, which you can't put on a campaign finance report. But yeah, you're right, and I don't want to be compensated for it. This is my privilege to run as a representative here and to try to advocate for people here in this town.
Now you're spending on things like the brochure we have here in front of people, and I'll hold that up to the camera. Maybe they've seen it in District 2 or the signs. But you've spent a little over $1,200, and looking at it, almost all of it's spent out of state. When you talk about the small businesses being the backbone of our town, things like printing brochures, design, signage. I mean, surely you could find a small business here to do that kind of work.
I did look into Lotus Design, and I am doing a mailer that I'm probably going to go with them, which will be kind of a day before the election type of mailer. It's a fair question. The reason I went with the companies I did is because I had pre-existing contracts with them through the publishing company. So I was able, again, I'm challenging a 4-term incumbent, and in order to get the most, in this case, brochures or flyers or postcards or what have you, they were able to give me, quite a lot more, for bang for my buck. And as you just brought up, this is coming out of my own pocket. So, these are good companies, and I think, if you look at my policies, and I know you have, I'm very much for small businesses here. I own a small business here, so it's not. It's more of a fact that there were pre-existing business relations than anything else.
Right, and you talk about wanting to make the state more business friendly, pointing out that The Economist gives us very poor grades on that. Is part of that business friendliness changing the type of economy, especially here in Brattleboro? We're a very tourist-driven economy. Wondering what you see as sectors of opportunity for businesses here.
I think, Chris, it could be improved across the board. There's the reason the article that I cited in The Economist, in the brochures and other on the website, gave Vermont an F grade, along with, I think, New York and California, the only other states to get that. And the reason that it's so hard for small businesses is because the laws have been written that way, and that starts with what I'm running for, the state legislature. And I think that there's plenty of opportunities in technology, in green energy that we're not taking advantage of. As far as energy goes, I know that's one of my opponent's big platforms. We don't offer a lot of incentives to individuals and to small businesses to locate their businesses here. You look at a state like Massachusetts or New York, they offer 2 to 3 times the private incentive, and these incentives could be loans or grants or whatever, or compensate or tax credits. We're not doing that. So that's a huge area for improvement. We need to improve our internet infrastructure. We haven't been doing that. And that if we do that, we can help bring in new technology, new jobs that way.
When you're talking about incentives and talking about where those incentives are directed, out of state incubators, do you have a sense of where that money should be directed? Is it something that you're looking to want to bring other businesses that are established into Vermont?
I think that would be the easiest way to create jobs. The thing is that, and I don't know if a lot of people quite realize this, but we're living in an open economy and an open world more than ever, And there are states that are doing a better job of attracting these businesses than we are, and that's just fact, and you can see it. You look at a state like Ohio, where they had many of the same problems that we did a decade ago, kind of this post-industrial, type of thing. More heavy industry with them, but they got in there. They changed a lot of laws. They made it really attractive for not just established businesses with employees to come in and invest in the state. They also made a lot of incentives for small businesses, and now that economy is thriving. And that's what we need here, and we haven't really had a shakeup like that in the last 20 or 30 years.
What kind of incentives do you envision? Is it something where we're talking about business loans? Are we talking about tax breaks?
The thing is, the goal is to make jobs. The goal is to make jobs. So you have to look at it at the source. And I don't know how much you want me to go into the weeds with with my economic theory. Yeah, please. I don't want to bore your watcher or your listeners. You have to and you look at states like Ohio, like Texas, that had this problem before and don't have this problem now. And what they did was they focused on making it easier for small businesses and medium-sized businesses to hire people. Because right now, as a small business owner in this state, there are a lot of incentives for me not to hire anybody in the state. And that's a problem. And that you hear that across the board. Downtown Alliance, which I'm close with through the town, they've said this to me many times in private. So you have to look at the payroll taxes, which have gone up, in the last 8 years, and you have to look at incentives towards offsetting that for the businesses. Because if you're a big business or a medium-sized business, you're going to look at that almost first, because your biggest source of money going out is your employees, is your staff, in most cases. Not all cases, but in most. So, you have states where what they do is if you bring in 12 jobs, they give you no state income tax for 5 years or something, or so no state income tax on the business, or no state payroll taxes on the employees.
It would be tax-based incentives. I think like right now we have things like
credits too would be good.
Okay, because I think right now we have things like the Enterprise Fund or the Vermont
and there
Growth
are
Incentive
some
Fund.
things.
We have money set aside, taxpayer-funded money for these different businesses there, but that doesn't square with what you're concerned about with affordability.
Yeah, not quite going far enough. And then you also have other laws in the books that, again, this is getting real deep into economic theory, but you have things like statute of limitation laws in this state, which for a business owner, especially not someone of my size, but a big business would look at that and say absolutely no way, just based on that, because they would go to a state like Delaware or California or the Carolinas, where it's shorter,
So
That's a big issue.
those two priorities I just mentioned, affordability and the business-friendly environment, are two of the four in the brochure that you really highlight as focuses.
Yeah.
And those are things that, it sounds to me, you want to have less of a burden on the populace of Vermont as far as a tax burden. And then the other two things,
Well,
where you're talking
yeah.
about drug treatment, more allocation for drug treatment, certainly a serious issue, and then also arts funding.
Yeah.
Are you envisioning shifting money from one place to another, or how do you square spending like that with wanting to make Vermont more affordable?
It's a fair question, and I think you had Phil Scott in here earlier today, and this is one of his big things, is that we need to create revenue. He said it a few times, and I don't agree with him on everything, but I do agree with him that our tax base is saturated. And we need to create revenue. We need to attract, frankly, people my age to stay in the state and give them incentives to stay, and to have them come here for opportunities. And we have to really shift the fact that most people are leaving Vermont, especially people in their 20s and 30s like me. That's a huge problem. That's a big reason why our tax base is getting stretched. And so my answer to that would be, we need to find a way to increase tax revenues, and that would be to get more businesses in. More young people get the businesses that we already have to invest in those jobs.
So not necessarily cutting programs. You hadn't been looking at the budget
I don't-
saying something should be scaled back or something should be cut.
I have a lot of issues with Vermont Health Connect,
Okay, right.
frankly. I'll be honest, I'm on it, so I personally don't agree with it. I don't necessarily not agree with the healthcare exchange and Obamacare. I definitely agree with that. But it hasn't been run well here. And I hear it every day from voters. And I can tell you personally that I don't think it's being run very well.
So
They've wasted a lot of money on that, and that needs to change. And the Democrats voted, there were bills in the House to audit that on almost a half dozen occasions over the past 2 years. And the Democrats voted it down on party lines.
Yeah. How about the all-payer model that Governor Shumlin is floating right now?
It's an interesting idea. I'll be honest, I don't know enough in detail about it to give you an in-depth discussion, but I think any change on the current system, it would be an improvement, frankly.
Right.
It's just, there's things I think that they didn't quite take into account, and I know they were trying to get Green Mountain Care in, and that was a big part of it, but it still left us with a system that I don't think is very effective, and is not really servicing the needs of people of Brattleboro and Vermont.
Right. Well, and when you talk about treatment for opioid abuse, and certainly that is something that has shifted in mentality here in Vermont, looking at it more as a health issue, both socially as well as individually, than a law enforcement issue. It's something you feel that needs to be made more of, or I guess what I want to ask you is, what do you think about the approach right now? It was made an emphasis for the state about 2 years ago, right, when you came here. We've put a lot of resources into things like hub and spoke model, patient-centered medical homes. Are we going in the right direction?
Well, there's a lot of money going towards studies and administrative stuff. If you actually get into the budget, into the Secretary of State, and actually look at it, there's a lot more going to studies and analyzing the problem than I think going towards treating the problem. I think that's a typical politician thing to do, is to create studies. We see it even in Brattleboro with a variety of things. I think the biggest indictment of how the opioid epidemic is being treated here was that the federal government had to come in and really help us earlier this year. If we were doing a great job, they wouldn't have done that, and they wouldn't have dumped the amount of money they did into it. And I think it's something that's not being addressed enough.
Right.
It
So
really isn't.
Is it more of how the resources are being allocated in your mind, or is it the structure
It's
that we have in
both. I
place?
think more resources are needed, and I do think that they need to be allocated better. So yes, it's both, in my opinion.
And then the other thing that you want to fund is arts, more
Yes.
arts spending. And,
Yes.
and you mentioned that you're on the town committee here.
Yes, I'm the chairman of the town arts
for the arts committee. What kind of increase are you proposing in arts spending?
I'd like to see it more akin to what we see in states like Minnesota or Oregon, where you see it closer to 1% of the state budget. Right now, it's 0.012% of the state budget. And I found, and this honestly was one of the impetuses for me to run, because I was, chairman of the Town Arts Committee in the spring, and we proposed a bill, which I don't know if you covered it all, maybe not. But we tried to get money to promote the local businesses and the local artists, and it was voted down pretty soundly. And I kind of took that initiative to kind of look into it deeper and why that's happening. And I actually worked with my current opponent to do research and to get, her endorsement was on that. And which is odd, because she's an artist and very well highly thought of in the community in that respect. And she's a great artist. I've seen her work myself. But I mean, you look at it's $645,000. Is the actual
1%?
No. That's what's being spent.
That's what's being spent.
That's
now.
what's being spent now. And in terms of actual dollars spent, that's 47th in the nation. Now, I would think that Vermont would be top 5 at least with that.
Well,
it's not, and it should be.
When you're thinking about and this is your chance to make the case, all the different industries that need help from the state government, that need funding, why support arts versus, say, advanced manufacturing or green energy?
Well, it's a good question. I think it's what makes Brattleboro unique, and it's what attracts people here.
Right.
And it's what attracted me here,
Sure.
frankly. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for the circus school. So it really gives Brattleboro such a unique character. And it was voted, we put this out in our own literature in the town, it was voted one of the 10 best small towns in America by USA Today 3 years ago. Would it have that if the arts industry wasn't what it is and so vibrant? It's really a pleasure for me to serve in the town government too. It's a real thankless job to be the chairman of the Town Arts Committee, as I'm sure a lot of people have told you. But I love working with the artists and getting them involved and trying to get the town to recognize and promote what's really special about Brattleboro.
So when you're talking about that funding, you're talking about using it specifically for marketing.
Not necessarily for marketing. That would be one part of it, but we need to create, I think, a better grant program than what we have. I think we need to create more outreach to the artists that are already here. We really need to fundamentally prioritize the arts in this town. And you're right. You make a fair point. Is it as important as other jobs, or other industries?
Well, these are the questions.
They're important. It's important to me.
These are the questions you're going to get from the legislature outside of Brattleboro, right? You're saying this is good for Brattleboro. Why does somebody in Franklin County?
Well, I'm
necessarily care
running. I'm
what's
running
good
to
for
represent Brattleboro, and that's my priority. So.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So here's a question that I don't get to ask very often because I don't get too many independents in here. But
I'm sure.
So when you're looking at the two major party candidates, and poll actually just out today that we're taping this has Phil Scott with a 1-point lead over Sue Minter, so it's very, very even.
Yeah.
You look at those two candidates, which one aligns more with your campaign priorities?
That's a good question. I'll be honest, I'm in the same boat as a lot of people. I'm kind of in that undecided thing about the governors. I will say that I haven't I'm pretty focused on my own campaign, as you can imagine, so I haven't devoted quite as much time to it as I should. I like Phil Scott's approach towards small businesses, as you can imagine. He's, as far as I know, a business owner himself. I don't know what kind. But he also prioritizes increasing our population. I don't quite agree with him in the same ways. I think that we should have more of a youth movement, whereas he's talking about kind of getting more old money and established businesses in, whereas I would like to create more of an environment where small businesses could be created and then thrive. So we do differ on that. I think Sue Minter did a good job with, with the hurricane, the cleanup, and I think she should be applauded for that, and Vermont is in service to her for that. It's tough, and as an
Yeah.
independent, I'm really down the middle on it.
Well, it sounds like there's
having-
pluses and minuses based on what you would want to accomplish.
They
I didn't know
both-
if you leaned
yeah,
one
they-
way or
they
another,
both,
or felt you couldn't work with one on a particular issue.
I think I could work with either one of them,
Yeah.
and I think that's one of the benefits of being an independent. You know, there's part of their both of their platforms that appeal to me, and there's parts of it that don't.
Yeah.
And that's kind of
Right.
the long and short answer of it. So
Let me ask
we'll
you
see.
a question about an issue that's certain to come up in the legislature this year, not part of your campaign platform,
Yeah.
but I will remind everybody again, voteforadam.org, place to
Thank
go
you.
to find out about that. But Act 46, district unification, I'm sure you've heard about this,
Yes.
and certainly it's going to be a question that is going to come up in the legislature.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like anybody's happy with it. It's just a question of whether it needs to be tweaked or overhauled.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I'm at a bit of a disadvantage because I don't have kids. I hope to someday soon, but I don't have kids now, so it's not a problem that necessarily stares me in the face every day. I think that
It does to a degree because you pay for it.
it does. Yeah, that's true. We all do. We all do. You know, I think it kind of, we're asking the wrong questions with it. And I think the thing is, there's 1,000 kids in Vermont in our school system this year that won't be here next year because they're leaving. That, you know, Vermont has the highest rate of people leaving of any state. No one's talking about that. We're consolidating our school districts because there's less kids in it. I would much rather, instead of consolidating the school districts, which I think limits our population growth potential, which is again not something anybody's talking about, we have to address the issue. Why are these families leaving? Why are these parents taking their kids out of state because they don't think there's enough opportunities here? That's something that I think both the Republicans and the Democrats are not addressing, and they really need to. And it's such a shame because Act 46 is so big, and I see so many things about it. And my friend David Scholes, who is such a bit, you know, who might be on your show, I don't know, but he's okay, excellent, yeah, who's running as an independent for Senate. This is one of his big things, and every time I see him, he talks to me about it. You know, it's just I think we're asking the wrong questions, and it needs to, whether it needs to be changed and tweaked or overhauled, it needs to be changed, and that's my opinion. But I think it's almost like we're addressing the symptom. We're not addressing the problem.
Yeah. Let me ask you about one other issue here while we have still a little time, something that's going to come up. There's two
sure.
different pieces of legislation that are going to be introduced around a carbon tax. And there's a lot of rhetoric already going around trying to build the case for and against it. Your thoughts on that idea of a carbon tax?
I have mixed feelings. You know, if we lived in a vacuum and it was just plainly my opinion, I'm totally green energy. I'm totally renewable energy. I'm not a fan of the fossil fuel industry, as many aren't. But, you know, again, this plays into, are we making decisions based on our ideological stances, or are we making decisions based on what's best for the people of Brattleboro? And again, this is going to drive more businesses out of Vermont. It's going to drive, you know, companies that would have considered coming here, not coming here. And that, frankly, you know, I care about the environment just as much as anybody. I'm not downplaying that, and certainly being someone who's 32 years old, I'm going to see the effects of it, and we already are. I mean, it's 82 today, in the end of October. But it's this kind of trend of decisions that are being made on an ideological sense and forgetting about the people and what's going on. And Vermont Yankee is part of that. You know, I can't tell you how many people I've met who lost their jobs, they have businesses that were affected by it, that the money isn't there. You know, you're talking about losing 12,000 jobs in a town of 12,000 people. And I don't know how officially is it, but I get the impression that it was Governor Shumlin and the Democrats that did not want that, and that's why they left. That's not the official reason, of course, but it certainly seems like it's a big part of it. Again, I'm not morally, I'm totally for green technology. But when you have a situation like that, that kills that many quality jobs in the area, that it's a travesty. It's a real travesty. So, you know, I get the morality but the realities are we need to increase jobs here. We need to help the people of Brattleboro, because Brattleboro is not in great shape right now.
Well, the other reality is we are out of time here. I did want to give you a little bit of a
Thanks so
moment
much.
here to address the audience at home before we
Great.
go.
Well, hello everybody. I hope you've learned a little bit more about me over the past 30 minutes. You know, it would be the greatest honor for me to be your representative. And, you know, I've met so many of you, and we have some serious problems here in Vermont, and we need to address them. And the powers that be, Republicans and the Democrats, are not addressing what's important and what's helping you in your lives. And you know, I'm running as an independent, I'm running as an outsider to this system because I want to represent you. I don't want to represent the Democrats, I don't want to represent the Republicans, I want to represent you as the voters of Brattleboro, as the people of Brattleboro. And it would be my greatest honor if you can consider voting for me this fall. And thanks for your time. Hope you enjoyed the last half hour. Hope I didn't ramble on too much, but thank you very much.
All right. Adam Salviani, great to meet you. Thanks so much.
It's a real pleasure, Chris.
All
Thank
right.
you.
And once again, website is voteforadam.org, and thank you at home for tuning into this edition of Meet the Candidates. I want to remind you that Election Day is November 8th, but you don't have to wait until then. All the town clerk's offices are offering early voting, so you can get to there and get your ballot. Also want to remind you that Meet the Candidates episodes are available on demand at brattleboro.tv.org. Thank you.